Hello, everyone, all you founders out there. I have a really special guest and a conversation we're going to have about growth. And that is the main thing for all founders: grow, grow, grow. We're talking about growing, growing, growing. And for that, you need all sorts of different things like alignment between your product, strategy, data, the creative. Everything has to come together, and that's the name of the game when it comes to startups. How do you achieve this hyper growth? How do you get out there? Maybe you're just getting things started, or maybe you're at a place where, okay, I've sort of tapped out what we've been doing so far and we need to take this next level. We're going to talk about growth insofar as conversion rate optimization, also known as CRO or CRO. And we're going to talk real special treat about A/B testing, because I know that sounds like a great idea, but a lot of founders get lost in what is A/B testing and how to go. I have one of our founders here, part of the startups.com community, Alex. It's been great to get to know Alex. Every time I talk to him, he teaches me something new. Alex works with an organization. Actually, I think we can talk about this, Alex. You were, in essence, acquired to join the Maven team. So you're sort of a startup success unto yourself. Alex, welcome. Who are you and what is Maven? What's the Maven team all about? Just give us a little bit of introduction.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on. So quick background on my journey. I previously was a product manager at Snapchat, worked within product management, specifically growth features, customer acquisition for a handful of years. I started my own CRO agency or CRO agency called Goldtree over the last 2.5 to 3 years. During that time, really focused on how we could experiment on websites and use data, right, to kind of grow websites and businesses' presences. So after about 2.5 to 3 years, Maven came into the picture and then acqui-hired my business. And so now I am the VP of CRO at Maven, leading experimentation for all their clients. That's a little background on me and kind of what I've been up to in the last couple of years.
Now, Maven is what precisely?
Yeah. So Maven is a growth marketing agency, and it's fairly new on the block. I will say that. So you won't see a lot of specific positioning, but they serve a whole handful of clients, and they use a deep talent network, as you can see here: Netflix, Masterclass, Facebook, Apple, Google, Snapchat. So a lot of the leaders and also full-time employees here are from these top talent companies. And so we bring kind of that top talent to engage with our clients and basically provide growth to them via email, via SEO, via CRO, via ads. So yeah, we're basically a full service agency.
Okay. Let's pre-qualify for everybody out there going, is Alex really the expert that we're setting you up to be type thing? Anybody can say, oh, I was product manager at Snapchat. Although that is a pretty swanky title. That's pretty awesome. So I know you've got the background, but here's my question for you. So I'm looking at kind of your previous work. What's the most impressive thing that you've done? What are you proud about in terms of your past work and achievements?
Yeah, of course. I'm going to use Lionsgate. I worked with them for probably over a year until they, did a full-time hire, and I did train that full-time hire on, experimentation and running A/B testing. So Lionsgate, the specific asset we were working with in their larger holding company was called Pantaya, which was a Spanish streaming service. So think of Netflix, but for Spanish television, right? They had a buy flow, right? That was classic email, payment, password kind of step through process. I was able to leverage data to kind of identify where people were falling off and then kind of where they were interacting with different components of the page, and understand that if we implemented certain changes in that buy flow, we could increase conversion drastically. By the end of the test, without getting into too much detail, effectively, we were able to almost remove a step from that checkout process. In that process, we increased conversion rate by anywhere between, I believe it was like 10 to 15%. And when you have millions of people flowing through a checkout funnel, 10 to 15% is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we were able to basically complete that test in 30 to 40 days, right, to confirm the results. So The reason why I love that example is because, when I was a product manager, you spend 6 months developing a large product to get potentially a small gain, while experimentation and A/B testing was able to deliver huge gains in revenue in 30 to 45 days. So that's kind of the reason why I'm really into it. That's the reason why I love it, is to provide these big wins potentially in very short time periods. And Pantaya Lionsgate was a perfect example of that, of achieving that by using
Okay.
experimentation.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, let's dive in. Let's put on our own little master class here when it comes
Perfect.
to conversion rate optimization. How about we start first? What is conversion rate optimization in your words?
Yeah, of course. So conversion rate optimization is, simply put, if people visit your website, who's converting and what is the percentage of those users who convert, right? So if I have 1 million visitors coming to the website, 10% of them convert, then you have 100,000 purchases, right, from those users. So put simply, conversion rate really determines how much revenue you are generating per month, right? If you're an e-commerce business, or potentially how many leads you're gathering per month if you're like a SaaS tool or B2B service, right? So CRO is at the basis of basically your growth and how convincing your platform, how convincing your website, how convincing your product is. And there's ways to hack this, right? Or optimize it. So conversion rate's 1%, we want to get it to 2%, and that's optimizing it. And we could use a whole handful of different methods for that, whether it's improving designs, creating new landing pages, all that kind of stuff. So that's CRO at a basis. And how you improve CRO, which is kind of the next step, is A/B testing. And that's using a very data specific focused way of increasing conversion rate. But before I get into that, did you have any questions on what I just explained?
Yeah, let's clarify here for a moment. A lot of founders, what they do is they'll go out and they'll spend money on driving traffic. So let's say they use paid ads, or they're targeting blogs or something along those lines. And what happens is traffic comes and then nothing happens. Well, congratulations, success, the traffic is coming, but you're all about what happens after they come to your website. So let's say 100 people show up and one person hits that buy button, you have a 1% conversion rate. What you focus on is, hey, how can we get 2 people to hit that buy button? Congratulations, you've driven the traffic. What can we do to optimize the conversion rates when you come there? That's the simple layman's terms for people who are just kind of getting their feet wet when it comes to this sort of thing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And to add on to that, which you brought up a good point, is CRO really supports all the different growth functions that a founder might be doing. Like you said, paid media. If I'm paying for 100 people to come to visit the site, you want to make sure that you keep your conversion rate high, so that those people that are paid to be there actually convert. If you're running SEO and you're investing in SEO in these blogs, and you have 100 people coming in via your blog, you want to make sure that those people who land on the blog convert for whatever purpose you're going for. So CRO really kind of sits in the middle of a bunch of different growth efforts and can really improve them all.
Perfect. And many people or many founders don't realize how powerful it could be. Instead of, okay, if I say have a 2%, I'm just going to double my ad spend. It doesn't cost you any more to change your website or move things around to double the conversion rate of that traffic instead of going out and buying more ads. And that's a common mistake that I see founders make, is they just increase the spend. Yes. And it becomes this sinkhole where your burn rate just keeps increasing. What other common misconceptions or fallacies, I don't know, like misleading paradigms do founders have that you think if they just looked at conversion rate optimization, CRO or CRO, they would save themselves a lot of heartache?
Yeah, definitely. I'm thinking of 2 specific examples. So the one you just said, which is if I increase my paid spend, my, like conversion rate will actually remain the same. Say I'm converting at 2%. If you double your ad spend, a lot of the time you'll see conversion rate decrease. You'll see that more traffic, more unqualified traffic potentially will decrease your conversion rate. Your CAC goes up, and that's a problem for all founders. So CRO, in a way, if you're able to leverage it correctly, will keep that CAC down. So if you do double your ad spend, right, you're also using a service that's going to make sure that that scales properly. So that's one. The second one that I see is a very large misconception for at least trying to optimize a website is being our competitors did this, or this design looks really well, or this is the modern design. Those are hunches. Those are just assumptions, right? And I believe that CRO is a very data-backed process where you're using data to really understand whether or not it's working. So if you're just using a design that you got from your competitors or something, you don't know if that's actually going to work. I've seen so many examples of where maybe an industry standard design actually decreased conversion rate on clients' accounts. So, you really want to be methodical as you use new designs, as you scale ad spend, that you're thinking of CRO along the way and like how you use it to basically increase your conversion rate and make those other efforts successful. New designs, increasing, ad spend.
Therefore, conversion rate optimization, although it is a result, you want to increase optimization, it really does boil down to process. And that's the secret of really great CRO, which the process that we talked about, and we're going to talk about now, is A/B testing. Let's jump into that. What is A/B testing for the complete, like talk to me like I'm in grade school.
Yeah.
What is A/B testing?
So A/B testing is, say you have your original website. So you can call that A. So like a box with A, right? Right, the original website is what you have today, what everybody sees. What B, or the B part of A/B testing would be, is if I create a variant of that original website. Let's say I change the color of a button from red to blue. So now this B variant is a different variant of your original website. The idea of A/B testing is that I take 100% of the traffic that's visiting the original, and I take 50% of that, and I split it to my B variant. So that's A/B testing. It's A is the original, B, right, would be the variant that now has the blue button. And then now I'm measuring, right? So 50% is going to A, 50% is going to B. I am now measuring performance metrics and how users are responding to that change. So if I'm an e-commerce business, how did revenue change? How did my conversion rate change? How did the average order value change? If I'm a SaaS business, how many leads did I acquire? How many ebooks were downloaded, right? How many demos were scheduled? And so you measure different metrics depending on, right, what your business is. So, right, A versus B, and you run a test, and then you find out which of these variants performs best. And so that kind of goes back to what CRO is. It's a very data-backed process. You're not making guesses on if a design is just going to work magically. You're actually measuring the difference when you implement that design change.
Let's clarify. First, founders or anybody doing CRO need to understand what they're going to measure. And that's something that almost kind of gets lost. Maybe it's not final sale, how many people bought. Maybe it's how many people clicked that button and started going, through the process type thing. So that's the process there. The second thing that I think that a lot of people have misconceptions. They think A/B testing is, I'm going to completely just try this variant and then go from there. So it's like they don't refer back to the original. They're not looking. So you want to establish a baseline and then see what that looks like. Now, here's the interesting question, and let's just jump ahead at this. So how does a founder do this? Let's take an example of a website, and how do they send 50% traffic to the original and 50% traffic to the variant, and then compare to the two. I know there are tools out there. Like, how would you recommend a founder do that on their own with what's out there?
Yeah, definitely. So there's I would say two parts of that. There's the actual tool part, which will actually split the traffic for you. But then there's the setup part, which is like, do I understand what I want to test and how should I test it, right? And so starting with that first part, I recommend to all founders that one, look at your data. You need to understand, how your users are interacting with your existing website. Where are they moving to? How are they converting on the website? And to give a specific example of that, it's like if I am an e-commerce website and I land on the home page, what are the first, 2 or 3 steps that I take from that home page? Am I clicking a CTA in the top right? Am I using the navigation? Am I scrolling 50% of the way down the page and then clicking on like a product carousel, right? Understanding that allows you to understand what you need to test and what you need to prioritize. So when you look at those behaviors, you're like, I know that 70% of my users are clicking on this CTA and going to this product. Great, you now understand what you could potentially test to make the largest impact. So that first step, which is the setup and looking at your data, is helping you identify what you need to test, right? And then the second part is actually running the test. So we can go into a bunch of like kind of standards that you need to adhere by, but like very simply, a free tool that I recommend to all founders is Google Optimize. It's a Google product, super simple to just throw a script into your website that allows you to make edits to the website. So you could actually make your edits via Google Optimize on your website. And then Google Optimize will handle splitting the traffic between the two variants. So kind of to summarize, look at your data, try understanding how your users are behaving. And then number two, is when it comes to actually setting it all up, use Google Optimize for a free tool, right? And then that allows you to make the edits on your actual website and to split the traffic.
Google Optimize will allow you to split the traffic, and you're saying that both A, B can exist at the exact same time. It's not, I'm going to turn off my A site or make all the changes, publish it, upload it, and then wait for a month and then go back to the other one for a month. And you're actually doing it at the exact same time. That's A/B testing.
Exactly. And like a lot of use cases that I see with founders is like, hey, you have a big design change that you're planning on doing, and then all of a sudden, you implement Google Optimize, test it. Take that big design change that you had, put it into Google Optimize, and then see how it performs. And then the best part about Google Optimize is it's not like releasing a whole new website and like having to roll back a whole new website is very difficult. Google Optimize, you just switch it off. You say, okay, that wasn't working, switch it off. And so it allows you kind of a lightweight solution to be able to test these new designs you might have in mind. It also allows you to be very flexible with your deployment for these design changes. So, yeah.
For the non-technical founders out there, let's walk through using Google Optimize. Does it work with, let's say they have a WordPress site or Squarespace or all that stuff? How does it work technically? What level should they be at? Or is it so simple to use? What does that look like?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, Google Optimize is fairly simple when it comes to implementation with all the right, big name CMSs, Shopify, WordPress, Squarespace. You'll find tons of documentation online detailing out that like, hey, take this script, plug it into here in WordPress or plug it into here in Shopify, and you're good to go. And the other beautiful part about Optimize, right, is, I believe 99% of founders probably have Google Analytics implemented onto their website. So since Optimize is a Google product and, Google Analytics is a Google product, they automatically integrate with each other. So when you set up Optimize, it's literally a click of a button. Analytics is now set up in there. You take the script, you plug it into one of these CMSs, and then you're basically ready to go. And there's tons of documentation online on how to do this. So yeah, with any CMS, it's very compatible. And then, you have analytics to support that Google Optimize function, giving you a ton of data, right? So the data is revenue, the data is conversion rate, the data is how many leads. So yeah, just things to consider. And yeah, it works with every solution.
Okay, great. So that's a good, solid entry level for the founders or entrepreneurs, anybody watching this that are going to be a little more courageous or maybe a little bit technically savvy or willing to spend the money. What other tools would you recommend?
Yeah. So When it comes to if you're willing to invest, right? You say,
Yep.
I don't have time to learn about this. I don't have time to hire somebody to kind of handle all my A/B testing or CRO, or hey, I don't have a designer and a developer that would need to develop maybe more complex tests. My recommendation really is to work with an agency that either has all these tools available or all these resources as well, right? Because they, one, have the industry experience, they have all the case studies, right, that have worked on other clients that potentially fit your specific client profile. So just getting to that though, as far as tools that are more advanced, right, you could use things like Unbounce, you could use things like VWO. Optimizely is like the Ferrari of A/B testing tools, the most expensive as well.
Which one is it? Just say Optimizely.
Optimizely, yeah,
Optimize.
Optimizely. So Optimizely, VWO,
Oh,
and then
VWO.
yeah, and then Unbounce, and then there's so many more too, just beyond these as well. But primarily I would recommend these. Like Unbounce is just building landing pages. VWO is kind of a middle tiered solution where you could spend more on it and have like more functionality than a Google Optimize. And then Optimizely is, like I said, the cream of the crop, like Ferrari of A/B testing tools, very in-depth functionality, right? And once again, each of these are very similar, but require slightly different knowledge, which is why I recommend the agency as well, because the agency will have experience with basically all these different tools. Like my agency has experience with all these tools, right? And then, along with that, they have the, expertise to be able to deliver, winning tests. And that's kind of something we may have like glossed over. Like a test that loses, right, Ed, is a test that also provides you valuable information. If you ran a test that decreased conversion rate by 5%, 10%, whatever it might be, you might be discouraged. But in reality, you've actually learned a very valuable thing about your users. You learned that whatever design change you implemented or whatever you changed did not respond well with them. And so to either avoid that or to change other parts of your website that might be promoting that, right? And so losses are just as important as winners. And so I believe, once again, an agency really understands how to use losses, how to use wins, how to double down, how to kind of pull away when they run experimentation. And they use data to do this as well.
Sure. Then how about, let's go back. So I'm using one of these tools. I figure out, okay, here's how it works. There's a big, in the hero image, there's a big call to action button that I want people to click on.
Yeah.
So I decide that I'm going to A/B test that button. And so different text, different color, different things like that. And I'm getting data. Then what happens? So I look at my A/B testing and I see that one works better than the other. Obviously, it seems like common sense, go with the one that's working, but how do you continue to iterate? Do you just then start going through the other features? Do you try and increase it? Like, what do you recommend that the mindset after you've tested and I've got this data, how do you make decisions on going forward?
Yeah, of course. And this is a great question and really goes back to what I've, kind of been preaching, which is data, data, data. It's like everything, right? And so, right, my agency specifically runs a free audit, which is what is the basis of a pro roadmap. And I'll kind of describe my audit and how that leads to, right, how the roadmap works, right? So what your first test is going to be, and then what potentially your follow-up tests are going to be if they're winners. So let's start with that example that you use. Let's say that I run the free audit. Things that I'll be looking for are, okay, I know that 80% of all the new users who enter the site come onto the homepage. Out of that 80% of users, 90% of the revenue is being generated from those users. So I know that the priority is my homepage. That's like step one, square one, right? So that's the first thing I find out in my data audit, is that the homepage is the most valuable page.
Okay.
Second step.
Just pause for a second. I think this is worth highlighting. So many just automatically default to think that their homepage is the page.
Yes, exactly.
But there's landing page. There could be a source of data. Like they could be coming, hitting a blog post or something along those lines. So you just don't know what you don't know until you actually look at your data. You pointed out a really important thing, which is the reason the first step of analyzing what exactly is happening. I say take it approach from a first principles or data scientist approach. Take out all your anecdotal, your analogy thinking. Maybe you heard a story, and this is what anecdotally you're hearing this. Just forget all that and say, I'm going to approach this completely fresh, like I know nothing. I'm going to look at the data and say, ask, what is this data telling me without my own biases? Like maybe I really like my homepage, but it's just not the truth. That's where it's happening. So you pointed out a really important principle in how we do that. Okay, continue.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, after I've identified this base page, right, that's generating all the revenue, that has a majority of the traffic, next thing I'm looking for is going a step deeper. So that's 30,000 foot view. I'm going into 20,000 foot view. What is the first step the user's making? Is it clicking that CTA, right? Or is it using the navigation option? Or are they submitting their email in a newsletter form on the home page, on the product page, whatever it might be? The reason why I look for that is because that's the hot spot. That's where the attention is today from my users. My users, I'm making hypotheses on what they're doing. And so when I'm looking at this page and I notice that they're all going to this third section that has this CTA, then why is that so attractive? Why is that attractive to a user? Is it because it's the product that they want? Is it because it's what's solving their problem? Is it because it has the most value to them, right? And so at that point, now that I've made this discovery of like, this is the hotspot, this is where users are going, I'm going to run a test on that. So let's say that's our first test. We change the CTA, right? I'm kind of fast forwarding here. And like you said, it is working, right? So that test worked. What I'm going to do after that is look at the same data I looked at before I ran the test. So I ran the test, right? What changed on the behavior of those users? Did they click that button more? Did they click a different button more? Did they scroll further down the page, right? And so the idea is that you kind of run the same data evaluation process after every test to understand what increased the conversion rate, what actually led to it. It's not like, oh yeah, the button is blue now and it led to this increase, but what behavior changed from the user that led to that increase. And so that's when I double down again, where it's like, okay, it's the blue button that worked great. So let's try blue on different parts of the page. I don't know, I'm just saying stuff, right? Let's try blue on different parts of the page once again. And then we see another increase, right? So we know that blue is the magical color, right? And so that's kind of the doubling down process in using this data review to understand, right, what is working with your users. It can't just be like, oh, we're running tests and not looking at the data after that. You kind of have to continuously be evaluating how your users are changing. And the main difference, but I know this sounds super complicated. I know this is kind of getting like deeper and deeper, but the reason why I say this is because when you have this data view and mindset, it leads to more consistent winners, right? People who just test kind of willy-nilly, their average, right, win rate, which means a test that gives a positive result, is going to be anywhere between like 30 to 40%, right? Like for us, because we do this heavy evaluation, we're delivering usually 70 to 80% of the time we're delivering winners. And I fully believe it's because we really analyze how users are changing after every test. And so that's kind of the process of like doubling down on winners, where you start, and then how you continue to improve going from there.
Breaking it down then, you're saying that first I test A to B, and if I've got something positive, I'm moving the needle a little bit. Let's say I go from 2% to 4%. Then I'm going to keep going. And you're saying that now my B has become the new A, and I'm going and I'm iterating. This is a completely iterative process. Don't wholesale change everything, because you're not going to know what really moved the needle. So you want to boil it down to factors that you can measure and see, make these incremental adjustments. And by doing that, eventually you're going to get to that 70 to 80%. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, well, I say 70 to 80% like win rate, which means like the A/B test won, like, right? But like it's totally an incremental process. So like that's the thing about CRO. It's if you're doing it, it's free. It's not like paid where you have to spend money, right, to continue to improve. CRO, you just can always be incrementally be testing and understanding how to get a higher conversion rate. So yeah, it's like A to B, B wins, B is now your original. B to C, right? And maybe C loses, so then you keep B, and then D, right? And then B, D wins, and then you keep going from there. So like it's always just a continuous process month to month. And you really never stop optimizing. Like, you always want to be optimizing.
And there's the truth. So I can I can share, I hear from the marketing department and our CMO here at startups.com every week. We get kind of a download of the data and all the different things that they're testing. And, we increase this by 10% this month and that by 20%. We're going to test this and that. It's a full-time gig. Like, this is the reason chief marketing officers, agencies, individuals like yourself exist, because what I like about it is it's an investment. It'll pay for itself. If I can invest in a program like this and I double my sales, well, I can actually measure the ROI on what I'm investing in my CRO, functions or initiatives.
Exactly. Yeah. And, that's the other great part about CRO. It's immediate and you understand the return, right? As soon as you're running the test. Paid is similar, but like SEO, it's a 6-month process. Email, right? It might take a while to ramp that up, but you could do attribution. CRO is very clear. You just know, did A or B perform better? And then you have the tracking in place. So, after a month, you could be like, wow, we increased revenue by 15%. Like, it's right there, like in 1 month. And then you implement that change, and then you have that continuous recurring increase in revenue into the future, right? So I full-heartedly believe you could prove the ROI immediately. So that's a big, benefit when it comes to selling CRO.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Question for you. This is a little out of left field. How much have you seen pricing affect conversion rates in general?
Oh, no, that's a good question for sure. And, once again, pricing as in regard to like the product, like how much it costs, right? That they might be selling. Yeah. So for e-commerce brands, usually a higher price definitely means a lower conversion rate. And the reason why is that you could actually see, like, once again, I go back to data, you could see very common trends for high priced items. You see that their first visit is usually not when they're purchasing the item. It's usually their second or third visit, because with the high ticket priced item, you're evaluating a bunch of different options because of the high investment. So a high ticket priced item, the conversion rate's very low because most users are leaving and coming back and then evaluating their decision. So you usually see purchases on the second or third visit. And so that means a lower conversion rate right out the gate. So that's something we account for. And it's actually something we A/B test for as well. So like, let me give you an example. I'm selling a $3,000 barbecue grill, right? I'm going to be comparing, right? I don't know much about barbecue. I'm just using that example.
That's a pretty swanky barbecue grill.
Yeah, right. Okay. So it's like a Foreman, or I don't know, right? There's a couple different brands you're trying out. What we might do from the A/B testing perspective is try to personalize the experience for a user who comes back. So this is like getting more into depth on A/B testing. But if I visit the website for the first time, I leave, and then the second time they visit, we set up an A/B experience where the test knows that they're a second time visitor, because you can do that type of targeting. And so literally when they come back, the page literally might say, welcome back, like you left this in your car. And we could build custom pages or call outs or design components that will be personalized to that second time visitor. And that is the level of personalization and optimization that really increases conversion rate. Like, we'll see huge gaps of conversion rate between the original and like an experience like that. So yeah, like every client is different based off of their price, right? Based off of like how their user interacts with the website. And for a high ticket priced item, that's a perfect example of like how that experience needs to be different.
That's the amazing thing about what's possible today. And the reason I think professionals like you are wizards. I've seen,
thank you.
I've had people show me here at startups.com. They said, Ed, here's all the data that we had on you before you became, a member. And it was scary. They knew exactly, everybody knew exactly what to talk to me about. And yeah, you can serve up different customized experience. That's the amazing part. So now that we made this all complicated for everyone, and people are probably drinking water off fire hose.
Yep.
So one is You're fantastic, Alex. It's been great because I can just send you some founders and you'll have a great conversation with every one of them. I so appreciate what you've been doing for us here at startups.com, being part of the community. But let's say first contact Alex. I'll include all the information. And, Alex is a great guy to get to know. I've been enjoying it. But if someone wants to go out and just get their feet wet and they want to learn themselves, what's the resource? What's the first step to have people start at least to become CRO savvy? Maybe not do it all, but start the journey. What would you recommend?
This is going to sound like a super simple answer, but Google Foo.
Google Foo,
Literally
yeah.
start Googling. There's a ton of great online resources, whether it's from like you'll see Optimizely is ranking for a bunch of articles on basics for A/B testing. If you go to my website, there's a ton of like blogs I've written on how to start, how to test on Shopify, how to test on WordPress. So Google, like don't just specifically go to me, but use Google, right, to kind of read up on it, learn and understand kind of what the first steps are, how you should look at the data, all that kind of stuff. So that's my recommendation is just like first step, Google Foo, get a basis.
Now let's talk about what commonly happens when people start Googling. They start to think, gosh, I don't know who's right, because there's often a lot of different methodologies or different modalities, different philosophies, theories that people have. Like you just go look at SEO and everyone's got a theory on SEO. The fact of the matter is Google's always changing their algorithms, and anybody tells you they got to figure out, they're probably lying to you.
Yep.
All we have is theory, right?
Yep.
So I'm sure there's lots of theories when it comes to CRO done properly. So what would you suggest to those individuals who are like confused? I'm reading conflicting things on how to do it, what have you. How do we navigate that?
Yeah, totally. And that's a great question. And it kind of comes down to how do you find an expert that you trust, right? That's kind of like with anything. It's like, how do I find somebody who does SEO that I trust? And it really comes down to their experience and case studies. And so what I'd recommend is, reach out to certain experts, ask for their case studies. If you are thinking about investing in CRO, really ask them is like, hey, have you worked with a business like mine? Have you worked with e-commerce? Have you worked with SaaS platforms? What could you listen to them ask questions? I actually just heard this great line that it's like, experts ask questions while novices, give advice. And so, that's what I always kind of think about whenever I'm talking to an expert in the field is like, are they asking me questions about my business, about my customer personas, about my website, right? And so if you're navigating that and you're looking for an expert, look for somebody who has the experience and is asking you the right questions. Yeah, that's kind of what I'd recommend.
Perfect. I appreciate the advice. That's what we're all about as a founder driven accelerator community for startups. You can find a whole bunch of founders. Hey, who's tried this with conversion rate optimization? Who's tried Optimizely? Who's tried all these different tools, et cetera? And you're always going to find someone to do that. Final question. What's the future? All right. So, you've been the expert in this. What's the trend? What's the future? What's going to give us that competitive edge that we need to be looking for in the world of conversion rate optimization? Give us some inside scoop advice on what you're seeing.
So when it comes to CRO, and I'm just going to call it experimentation almost, right? Because it's like how you're testing every part, like you should be testing across the whole business. And that's what I kind of think the future is like a vertically integrated, basically experimentation funnel. And what does that mean? That means you're testing your ads. That means you're testing your landing pages. That means you're testing your emails. That means you're testing your blog pages, right? And everything is interconnected when it comes to the experimentation and A/B testing. So, you run an ad, right? And then the landing page aligns with it perfectly. The creative is similar, right? The messaging is similar. It's all one fluid message. And that also aligns with the email that the user might get if they convert afterwards, right? And so the future is having like a vertically integrated team that's completely aligned on like how they should be growing your business. Because when you have different parts of your body talking differently and working differently, it's not going to be as fluid and as strong. And so the future, I think, of experimentation is when everything is lined up, the ads, the landing pages, the email. That's where you get to a point when, experimentation and A/B testing and CRO really kind of double down on itself and become super strong, right? So that's kind of what I would say.
Especially as all this becomes more complex, everything becomes more competitive. It's just like any marketing channel. You just never know. Like there are companies out there that just manage to hit the golden goose, if you will, building community, where someone does offline, unconventional PR, different things. Same thing when it comes to CRO. If you're able to analyze that full stack, if you will, and align it, you might find some really great opportunities in that stack, but you have to be looking. That's what I heard.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So by this point in time, I know because I look at my data on watching these videos. Most people have dropped off and they've stopped watching. So I have one question. It's kind of indulge me on this one.
Yeah.
What's, without giving us gory details, breaking confidentiality, what's a cool thing that you're working on that just has you like super excited?
Oh,
as a founder, as someone in this space, like what's just got you so amped up as far as a project or a challenge?
As a founder, I'm kind of gonna go more to the personal side and like of the business, right? That I'm still technically growing, and like the CRO division that I'm still technically growing. Just figuring out how to build, a message that really resonates with users, and like kind of the discussion we had today, right? It got complex very quickly, right? And it kind of, like it gets complex, and how do you sell and how do you communicate what CRO is in a very simple way? And I'm trying to figure out, right, the right ad creative for it, the right, organic SEO content for it, the right LinkedIn post for it, and figuring out how to take this knowledge and make it, so simple that everybody understands that it's extremely valuable and that it's solving a problem, and that it's something that I want in my business. That's a challenge and a project that I personally have been working on for the last 3 years. It's something I strive for and really think about every day. And because I'm very passionate about like what I do. I love the idea of giving my clients growth that they never thought they could have. And that's what I want to give to everybody, and like, if they could see the value that, I believe that my team can provide and what, I've kind of built, then that's a huge win-win for me. I get great satisfaction out of that, and they get growth. So ultimately, yeah, that's what I'm very excited about, is just figuring out how to communicate this message to founders, to other businesses, to potential clients, and make them excited about it, just like I am.
What I hear is you're not just building a business, but you really want to be a champion, like an ambassador for CRO in general. And so helping people understand what it is and championing the message and simplifying it so more people can become aware of it, because you do believe you live this. This is a way of life for you. Exactly. In what you do. It totally comes out.
Yeah.
It's great.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Alex. This has been a treat. And I hope I know it's going to be educational for all the people that are going to see this. As I stated, for everybody who's watching this, I'll add all Alex's contact information in terms of his LinkedIn and the website for Maven and what have you, that you can reach out. As always, reach out to us if you have any office hours requests, and we're going to just bring you more expertise and help all the founders here on the journey. Again, Alex, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Ed. Thanks for having me.